If your expectations are always those of someone content to live without physical challenge, then when it comes time for mental, moral, or emotional challenge, you fail to meet it because you are out of practice. Meeting and overcoming obstacles are skills that can be honed as opposed to talent with which you are born. The best way to prepare for the inevitable crap that life occasionally hands us is all to live in a way that prepares you for it. If you can treat personal tragedy like a heavy set of 20 squats, you'll do better than someone who has never met any challenge. Intentionally placing yourself in the position of having to complete a task when you don't know if you can is the single best way of preparing to be in that position unintentionally.
Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Better Humanology Podcast. My name is Jared Moon, and with me, as always, is Talon Schwam. What's up, Talon?
Hey, Jared, how's it going? Still a little bit sick, so I apologize if I sound a little bit, Oscar the Grouchy still.
Just lingering a little bit there, huh?
Yeah, just hanging around a little bit.
I think you sound good.
About the path.
I've always liked your voice recorded. Is that weird? Okay,
Yeah,
let's hop into the podcast. All right, so this is the Better Humanology Podcast. We have one goal, one aim, one mission. That's to make ourselves better and to make you better in the process. And we're kicking it up a notch this evening. We have to start with some very important announcements. We have two very, very important announcements.
That's right.
So first, go to betterhumanology.com. This once was a website, and we took it down. And now we're working on some things behind the scenes. But essentially right now, if you go to betterhumanology.com, you're going to be taken to a page where you can enter in your name and email. And what you're going to get is what's formerly known as the Mental Toughness Militia, not the full thing, but the Mental Toughness Work, the 21-day course. You're going to get the first 3 days for free. So I've gotten a lot of emails about that because I don't talk about that course as much. I don't push it as much because I've kind of, I give that to members in a different way now, but I want to definitely let people access that and see what that's like and what it's all about. So if you're interested, like I said, go to betterhumanology.com. You'll be taken to a page. You can enter in your name, email address, and get the first 3 days. I think that you'll enjoy them. You'll have some fun, or maybe you won't.
You'll get better easily.
with some of the challenges that are in there, but you will get better. I know Talon's gone through the Mental Toughness Militia, those 21 days. He was actually one of the first people to ever go through it. I've obviously been through it too, but what do you think about it, man?
I thought it was awesome. I thought it really pushed me in ways I didn't expect, and that's what I'm looking for. That's why I'm looking for things that will force me to get outside my comfort zone, and it did that.
And so I recommend everyone at least go hit up those first 3 days and check it out. I think it'll be really cool. All right. That's number one. Announcement number one. Announcement number two.
So hyped about number two.
Two is pretty epic as well. We're trying out something new here. We're doing a giveaway.
Ooh, boy.
And, I've actually heard of other podcasts doing this, and they're like, you know what? We're going to give away, a book or like a $5 like Post-it note or something like that. But there's only really one thing that I like to give away. And that's barbells.
Ooh, I would have never guessed it.
And so we are giving away a barbell to some special Better Humanology listener of the podcast, but here's how you enter the giveaway. You have to leave a review on iTunes. We're looking for... So we're not trying to buy your review. Let's get real clear here. If you love this show and you're like, you know what? I've always wanted to give these guys a 5-star review and leave a positive comment, but I'm busy, or I'm forgetful, or I'm driving and I can't do it, whatever. I'm trying to give you a little bit more incentive to do something you would have already done in the first place.
Right, exactly.
If you want to give us a bad review or a low amount of stars, then you don't even worry about it. Why are you even listening to the podcast in the first place? You know what I'm saying?
You don't need any barbells if you think we're not doing very good.
Right. So But in all honesty, if you've already left a review, you're already in the running. It's not like starting now. It's anyone who's ever left, the positive comment. You have to leave the positive comment, or else we won't know your name or your screen name, should I say? And that's how we're going to announce it. We're running this giveaway until December 12th.
12th.
So just a little over a month here, we'll be running this giveaway. And so you leave 5-star review, positive comment on iTunes, and you are automatically entered in for that barbell. So I just want to go over real quick, because before you couldn't do this on your phone. You couldn't leave a...
Oh, really?
Yeah, you couldn't leave a review on the phone, but if you're subscribed to the podcast, which a lot of people listening to this are, if you have your iPhone or whatever, you have the iTunes app open or whatever, the podcast app, should I say, you could go to my podcast, but I don't think that you can leave a review from there. It's actually kind of confusing. So you have to go to search in the bottom right-hand corner, and then type in, I'm doing this on my phone as I go, where I don't give improper instructions. So type in Better Humanology in the search, and then you can click on the podcast, and then you can go to reviews, and then click write a review. So, was that a lot of steps? Should I go over that one more time?
No, I think that was pretty simple.
Okay, cool. And just anyone can rewind it if they want to go over that again. So, do that. You could do it on your phone. You do it on your computer, and you will be entered in for that barbell. And it's going to be a good barbell.
Yeah, it's going to be worthwhile barbell.
Yeah, it's not. Talon asked me before we started recording, he's like, is it going to be like some rusty barbell you keep in the back of your garage or whatever? No, it's going to be a brand new barbell from Rogue Fitness, shipped directly from them, brand new to your house. And I've done this a few times at N3 Fitness. I've done barbell giveaways. I did a full garage gym giveaway with the release of my book, The Garage Gym Athlete. So I like doing the giveaway thing. It's a lot of fun, and I love getting the picture and story after someone gets their gear.
Heck yeah, man.
So enter in, and hopefully we can make you a better human by giving you some weight to push.
Yeah, hypes me up. I need to start my garage gym anyway.
You do. All right. So long-winded announcements, but worthy.
Yes.
All right, man. Let's do some better human bullets. Hop into some challenges. I want to hear about your challenge. We could recap last week if you want to, or we could just hop into what you have for us this week.
Yeah. So, what'd you think about last week's challenge?
I wasn't a huge fan, to be honest. I started it, but I think that it would, and this is 100% on me, not on. So on the challenge, not on you, not on the challenger. It made me want to, like, almost envious of another person when I was trying to, like, what I liked about them versus, and that's probably just me, like me thinking of something and be like, damn, why don't I have that, or why don't I have this? And it wasn't in a bad way. I don't let those thoughts ever get too far most of the time anyway, but I was just like, I don't even want to go down this path any further, so I stopped, but kind of thinking it, in a different light of, as opposed, because I was doing it as like one skill set that I wanted, but when I kind of just did it in my mind, I didn't do it on paper. I did it in my mind later on, big picture, just a person, maybe a role model.
Right.
It was less. Damning, should I say? It didn't bother me at all. So,
yeah, that's why I kind of said later on the show. I kind of wish I had thrown in a second example, like a third circle almost. That was somebody that represented, something that you didn't want to become. Because that was really, I think that's a common pitfall. I think anytime you're trying to compare yourself to somebody that's got a really positive, successful life outlook. On things, I think it's probably common to start like thinking, oh well, they have something that I don't have, so it turns into maybe a negative feeling, like envy or something like that. But in this exercise, it was supposed to try to challenge you to just look at yourself again, and to do that, you almost had to compare yourself to somebody else. And I just wanted it to be someone that had a good, had a kind of accomplishments or had kind of a life that looked like positive, so that some of the things that you were be looking at yourself, you could see some positive things in them, and maybe those are some things that you could bounce off with. But I can see how it can not work out the greatest. This week, I want it to be really simple. So there's no deliverables or anything like that. There's no questions you're answering or anything weird, but it does involve a little bit of writing. So I want you to try and put aside 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, somewhere around there. You don't want to go like an hour, but you don't really want this to be like a 5-minute long deal. So probably about 15 minutes to 30 minutes or so. Set aside time to take a walk this week. Just a real quick, simple walk. Try to go by yourself. Don't go with anybody else, because they'll distract you, and you'll end up probably having a conversation or something else. Maybe you'll end up complaining about your week or something. But I want you to just go on a walk by yourself, alone, outside, preferably. And then when you get done, go back to your desk or whatever, go back home and jot down a few sentences about what you noticed. And it can be about what you noticed about anything. It can be about what you noticed about somebody hadn't cut their grass in the last 3 weeks, or, I noticed that there was a weird smell in the air, or I noticed that my heel hurt a little bit on the right side when I put it down, I don't know, a little too hard or something like that. Whatever it is, whatever you notice, just write it down, just a few sentences. And that's it this week. And you'll find out more in the future about how we're going to use this.
I can get on board on that one. That one's good.
Simple.
Yeah. All right, man. So for me this week, fitness challenge. This is going to go in line with what we're going to kind of cover as we talk about the podcast. So it might make a little more sense as we go on. But I want you to do, I'll kind of have a beginner and then an advanced. Do air squats, three sets of 30 air squats with your eyes closed. So eyes closed, air squats, but it sounds probably really easy in your head. But that's why the number is 30. It's a substantial amount. And just be aware of what's going on during those full 30 air squats. Are you losing your balance? Are you getting scared of what's happening? Do you feel like your form's still pretty good when your eyes are closed? And for the advanced people, I want you to do pistols, which are single leg squats, where you extend one leg forward, all the way forward, and squat all the way down with the other leg. So most people should know what a pistol is out there. So you're going to be doing 15 each side, and that's it. Not 3 sets of 30, 15 each side with your eyes closed. And that's it. That's for the fitness. It's not going to be super challenging cardiovascularly or muscularly, but it might challenge you another way. And I think that's, we're going to get into some of that later, and I'll talk about why that was the challenge. Mental toughness. So this also goes along with the book recommendation, but I want everyone to do what the psychologist came up with. His name's Gary Klein. It's called a pre-mortem. So you've heard of a post-mortem, right? Like
right.
After death or whatever, you check everything out. So this is actually pre-mortem. It's negative visualization. And so
what?
Negative visualization. So thinking of anything that could go wrong, any obstacle that could come up, anything. But actually, like, I kind of have this mindset in life. This like, but it's almost a bad thing. Like I'll always jump to worst case scenario in certain situations. Right. Yep. But this is like an on purpose negative visualization, not like, oh yeah, I kind of already think about the bad things that could happen. Like, no, that's kind of a bad aspect of life. I'm talking about maybe you maybe have a trip planned, or you're doing something in business or whatever. It's not thinking of the absolute worst case scenario. Like if you're going on a trip with your family, it's not like, well, we could all get in a car wreck and die. Worst case. It's all the things that, if the objective of this family trip is to have fun, what are all the things that could come up, the obstacles that could come up that are going to make you not have fun, or could possibly make you not have fun? So maybe you can mitigate them happening before you even start the trip. So it's not like this right. Negative, like always jump to the worst case scenario, which would probably always be like death or something, right? So it's not going that far. It's just really sitting down, taking 10 to 15 minutes before something happens, and yeah, just kind of seeing what the issues could be. And I got that idea from the book, which is the recommendation this week, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. So I just recommended one of his books a few weeks ago, Ego is the Enemy. Really like this guy's writing. And so, The Obstacle is the Way, great book, goes along with all the things we've been covering with Stoicism and Marcus Aurelius and all that other stuff. You can tell from the title of the book, Obstacle is the Way, talks about things that we've talked about on the podcast already, and it's kind of like if something's hard, that you almost know that's what you have to be doing. Like, that's the direction you need to go. And that's kind of the entire premise of the book, but he has a lot of examples from history and courses of actions to take and everything. So it's a very practical book and very good book. So The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday.
Sounds awesome. I think a lot of that stuff falls in line with a lot of stuff we talk about on the show. So.
Yeah. It's all good stuff, man, but I don't want to hold us back any further from getting into tonight's topic, man. So you want to kick things off?
Yeah, so tonight I thought it'd be really cool to talk about kind of learning styles. This is something that I always say near and dear to my heart, but it really is something that I think is important, something I've studied quite a bit actually throughout my life. And it's also known sometimes as multiple intelligences, and that's a big term that's been growing throughout the years. There's like probably 20-something of those now that they keep adding on, all these different types of intelligences that humans have. It's a pretty cool theory that's popular right now. But in just kind of breaking it down to learning styles, there's kind of 7 key ones, and I think it's important. Reason why I want to talk about it's important, I think, if we know what our learning styles are. And I think when we do, I think we're that much more empowered and prepared to learn better, because we know how we're taking in the information best. And so I'll just break down real quick the 7, and then I'll break it down a little bit further. But so we're all on the same page. So the 7 are: the first one is visual. People can be visual learners. Those people prefer using pictures or images, and they prefer maybe having examples that's in kind of the spatial space. So kind of just examples in space. Number 2 is auditory learners. Those people who prefer using like sounds or music. Those people who, probably listen to audiobooks often to try and get the information and things that they learn and take in. 3 is verbal. So this is like having communications with people or conversations with people about things to help you learn better. So they prefer using words, and so through speech and or writing. 4 is physical. So kinesthetic kind of learner, people who prefer using their body, hands, or sense of touch. 5 is logic. People who prefer using logic, reasoning systems. This is a lot of times people who break down different types of information into mathematical kind of formulas. So ways kind of to help them process the information more fluidly. Then you have the social learners, people who want to learn in groups with others so they can kind of talk about and bounce around the ideas that they're trying to intake. And then the solitary learners, who are people who are would rather learn while they're on their own or while they're studying by themselves. And so I know that's kind of just like here's just a bunch of information thrown at you. It probably feels that way, but now you kind of have a concept of, okay, there's these different people out there, and we all learn a little bit differently, and you're probably wondering a little bit about how you fit in. And so there's a good way that the example I used online to get your kind of learning style. And I know this is going to sound a little bit deep because there's these 7, and maybe I'm a logical mathematical learner, and my goodness, like I've never understood that. Well, if you take this quiz, it kind of helps you break down what you really are. So to get to here, it's a little bit of a weird URL, but I like using all the universities out there because they usually have some of the most legitimate information. So this one's Penn State University. I thought they were pretty good. I think we used them on episode 1 a couple years back. I think I used them for meditation or something.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds familiar.
But if you go www.personal, so PERSONAL.PSU, so for Penn State University, .edu/BXB11 .com/LSI/LSI. I know it's kind of weird.
You just throw me that link and we'll make sure it's in the show notes.
That's right. We'll make sure it's in the show notes. But it's just your learning style inventory, and that'll break down which of the 7 you are. And what's important about those 7 is, of those 7, each of those will kind of lean to kind of one of the 3 main learning styles as well. So visual, auditory, and tactical. So I know I went down to 7, down to 3 really quickly, but those are the 3 most important. Like if you're a social learner, you're still going to break down to taking in the information either auditory through hearing or through visual or tactical at best. So that's the best way to get yours out of those 7 there first.
I think this is really great information. I want to bring up some, because I have done some research on this, and I different courses I've taken in college and stuff. It comes up, but the real reason I actually did like my own personal research on it was because I kind of realized what my weakest learning style was early on. And I was a junior in high school, and I was in physics, and we were taking, like, they did a pop quiz, right? A physics, like just a pop quiz. And normally, like, I'd done 1,000 pop quizzes in high school. It's not like a big deal, but they always had like a whiteboard where they wrote down the questions, or like a projector, or they actually give you a piece of paper with a quiz, right?
Right.
And the teacher was just like, he's like, I'm just going to say the question. I'll say it twice, and then you write your answer on the piece of paper. And he wouldn't give you enough time to write everything down. And I got a 0 on the quiz.
Oh.
I couldn't, and I was really good at physics. I couldn't comprehend, like I couldn't like do it. I was like, I like to sit and tinker and like play with it and like map everything out and all this stuff, and I'm just supposed to like, boom, on the spot, okay, equations, start going, like figure out this problem. And I went and talked to my teacher afterwards, and I was like, dude, I'm not a bad student, and I just like completely bombed that quiz. Like, can we do anything? He's like, well, you can. He's like, you can do a retake if you come after school. He's like, I'll give you one written, but it's gonna be completely different questions, and it's gonna be harder. And I was like, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I came and after school and did the quiz, and then I aced the quiz.
Yeah.
But that was like a huge, because I didn't know anything about learning styles at that point. I had never really been taught that before, and I realized I was like, okay, if someone just says some shit to me, like, I'm bad at just like taking that in. Like I don't comprehend it as well as if I see it. And then I realized that throughout college is I basically I took good notes and everything in college, but I would ignore professors. Like, I would just be like not very interested in what they're saying, because I'm just gonna read it in the book later and teach myself, because I just wouldn't.
Wow.
I wouldn't care as much about what they were saying. And I did this in pilot training. When I was in pilot training, the instructor would be up there like talking about all this stuff, and I'd be like, yeah, that's great. Like, where is this in the book? Like, when do I need to refer to it? And like, I'll teach myself.
Wow.
So it's just, kind of a long-winded story, but like, it's super important to know where your strengths and weaknesses are in this stuff. But what's funniest about that is we talk about me listening to audiobooks all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't have any problems learning from people speaking if it's 100% like just normal stuff, especially if there's stories involved, it's whatever. But anytime you start getting mathematical, like aerodynamics and pilot training, or like physics or whatever, there's no way. I'll stop listening to you and be like, just show it to me written, and I'll figure it out. So I just want to share that because it's super important. And once I kind of started to work towards my strengths, as opposed to like I never worked on trying to become better at that. Like, I was just I'll just work how I learn best. I figured that out and started to found out a flow and a rhythm for how I learn and work.
Wow. See, I had no idea on some of those things. I think even more so, we're complete opposites than I thought before. I think me growing up, real quickly, I'll just kind of put my 2-cent story in. Growing up, I'm a guy, I have ADD really bad. And so growing up, I was that kid that was like drawing pictures, that was like messing with my shoelaces, that was like doing something while a teacher was teaching, like every single minute. Like, I had to be doing something. It was almost like, it's hard to describe when you have that, but it's always like, you had to be doing something. And that carried on all the way through college. I mean, I'd be sitting there drawing out cartoons or just writing down my own stories or things like that while I'd be in school. And for me, it became like about listening to the teacher or the professor, or in Intel school, like you mentioned, in pilot training, I did the same thing in Intel school. Listening to what they think is important and what they're teaching. And that'd be the only way I'd really learn, because I wouldn't be reading the book. I wouldn't be writing notes, because I'd be busy drawing pictures or something like that. And so it's funny, because the very thing that you thought was not important to pay attention to, that you would basically teach yourself from all the information that they'd offer you, all the material they'd offer you, is the only thing that I would use very often for how I would learn. But it's funny that I say that, because it sounds like I'd be an auditory learner. Based off that story, I think I just probably evolved to become more so that way. But when I take my quiz here, like we'll have on the show notes, I got visual learner. So I don't know. I think I was able to learn a little bit more. We have some examples of some different strategies you can use, depending on if you're more visual, auditory, or tactical learner. But I think I'm going to lean a little bit some more on some of these visual ones, because I think I've been planning on and just, using my auditory learning skills more than anything else this entire time.
What's funny is in college, if a professor, I would try to find out at the beginning if they wrote their own tests or not. And a lot of, if they did, then I would pay attention to them, but not from like a learning standpoint, but almost what you said, like what they're emphasizing. Because then I would know, like when I'm studying or reading the book, I could be like, okay, they don't really talk about this, but they talk more about this. And so then I would know how to focus what I'm teaching myself, or, whatever. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So I'm going to break these down a little bit, and just the three main ones, just kind of give a little bit example of what they are, and then maybe we'll talk about some of these different tools, different tactics people can use if they're one of these types of learners.
And I want to break it down for the athlete when we get to one of them.
So visual learners learn best through their eyes, obviously. In a traditional classroom, they prefer to sit where they can best see what is going on in order to have an advantage when reading a teacher's body language, or studying charts and graphs, watching a video, or following along with PowerPoint. So obviously, I think that's pretty much what most of us out there would picture what a visual learner does. They are breaking down and incorporating the information that they see more so with their eyes. So it's like, if I think the example you use about your, pop quiz in physics in high school is perfect, because when he's reading off that question, and it's like you're hearing, such and such amount of number that you probably need to write down for your equation, it's not processing as well, because it's just jumbled with a whole bunch of other words, maybe to you or to other people who aren't auditory learners. But when you put it down like on a board or on a piece of paper, and it's like the numbers are written out in kind of a a formulation, then it's much easier for you to process it. I think it makes a lot of sense. And so some of the different kind of tactics you can use, something that like I've never used before, some things that I might incorporate are like color coding your notes that you take, or finding like using like certain different colors for outlining your notes, or maybe making diagrams on your own to break down the information that you know. And then it doesn't have to be like that you hear in class or whatever it is, or at work or wherever you're at, or at home, or maybe like your Sunday school group. It could be any kind of information that you're trying to learn, talk about, or gain. These are some ways that you can help kind of cement it in your head, using flashcards, things like that. What kind of learner are you? You're a visual learner? Are you you're not auditory, you said, so.
Probably visual and but I think the hands-on thing, like tactical learner or whatever.
Right.
I think that's very dependent on what you're learning. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's true.
Because I think that might be my strongest one. And I'll talk about more that in a minute. But a lot of things it doesn't apply. Like learning physics I don't feel like applies with tactical. Like hands-on as much. I think it's a little more visual, but maybe it's a combination of visual and tactical, like actually writing things out and doing that. I don't know.
Well, I know for tactical stuff, a lot of times examples I've seen in classes and things are like they'll have maybe like physical objects, like 3D physical objects to explain like a problem or something like that. So like if in physics you'll get like trains moving towards each other or like balls rolling off a hill or something like that, and they'll actually show different types of little like 3D models.
Yeah, I don't need that. So I guess I'm not a when it comes to the intellectual stuff, I don't need like a. It's like, oh no, if you don't understand what a train moving is, let me show you a train moving.
or like if you're explaining something, you'll use people kind of as like references, and people like stand up and maybe like, okay, this person takes this many steps this direction, and it's symbolizing maybe like
that would really cement it in my brain. That's for sure.
Okay, well, good. Yeah, there you go. See, but I think that's also partially visual because, it's not so much about you moving. Maybe if you're the one sitting down, it's more visual. Maybe if you're the one participating, it's more spatial. I'm not sure.
Another thing that's always stuck with me that I've remembered is I'm not bad with directions, but Emily, when we first started dating, we were back from college. We were going to her parents' house, and she lived like kind of out in the middle of nowhere compared to where I lived. Like there's all these like windy roads and like, oh, turn here, turn there, like turn there, like all of this crazy stuff. And really this was pre-iPhone. We weren't GPSing our way to everywhere. And she drove me there the first time I ever went to her house, but she had a story. She didn't do this on purpose, but she had a story about like every single thing. Like we drove.
Every turn?
Yeah. She was just telling me like nonchalantly about things. She'd be like, oh yeah, and this guy, this neighbor does like this crazy thing here, and it was just happened to be like right where we were turning, and then we'd get up to a stop sign, and she'd be like, yeah, and then there was a car accident here, and then like I don't know, then I was like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to remember how to get back to her house. I was thinking, and then when I drove there, I was like, oh yeah, I remember all of her stories. Like I know exactly where to go because there was a story at like every question mark I had, and so
nice.
It's just another little tidbit there, but.
Right, and I mean, she's telling you the story, but she's showing you the places.
Right, yeah, I don't think that one's audible as much because I'm seeing it as I go. So
Well, that's the thing about all of these is we all have all of them, right? It's not like
yeah, you use them all. Yeah,
Right.
That's what I've always read and understood.
right. I'm not trying to get to where like, oh, I was wrong. I'm only visual learner, and I don't learn anything through hearing. So I've been being stupid my whole life and just trying to like put a square peg through a round hole.
I think that's the problem with personality tests too. Is like
yeah.
people will label themselves and they're like, oh yeah, well I don't do that. I get mad when people tell me bad news because I'm XYTZ. It's like, how about you just don't do that? How about you change that part of that you don't like? And it's like, nope, I can't. That's what I am. It's like, okay,
I am what I am.
I am what I am.
No, I know. All right, let's move on. A couple of these. Let's get a couple of tips for auditory learners. So, auditory learners are people who attain their information best, obviously, through their ears. In classrooms, they try to sit away from noisy distractions in a place they can hear the instructions from the video or from a teacher best. And they also like learning from books being read to them, poems, or through songs. And so a lot of times for these people, some things they can do are to read aloud to themselves that can really help them learn information. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but I actually talk about that with my wife often when it comes to like trying to just get the information. Because sometimes for me, reading information, just flat out reading it is just almost impossible for me to really take it in that first time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes for me, I have to read it several times over for it to really settle in. And so I think when you're being forced to just read so much, like maybe you're taking several courses and you're doing a course at work or you're teaching at work or whatever it is, you're having to probably read for your job as well. It becomes so cumbersome, so much reading that I think it's hard sometimes to, even if you are someone that learns best that way, really, really intake all of it. And really understand all of it. So that's something I was even talking with her recently about is like reading out loud can really help. And that's for a lot of people, just reading out loud, because when you're saying it, it's almost like writing it and saying it at the same time, reading it and saying it at the same time. It kind of just helps solidify it that much stronger. Let's see. yeah, re-listening, like recording lessons or things, or recording conversations maybe you had with somebody that was about a topic that you were really interested in learning more about. Sometimes going back and listening to those can help you solidify that information better. And summarizing things back to yourself, things that you learned, and always orally, actually saying it out loud for these people really help them in learning things. So, I mean, I think auditory learners are probably the least common of people, honestly. It's pretty rare. I thought I was the only, I feel like I was the only person in my entire life that I'd ever known that was an auditory learner until like tonight I found out, I'm not really an auditory learner. I'm a visual learner. but I know very few people. Like seriously, I thought I was the only one. Do you know anybody that's like you would say auditory learner? Definitely.
Not that I could for certainly say, no.
Yeah, I think it's pretty rare. I think a lot of us are pretty, I'm just like everybody else now. I think most people are visual learners. But real quick, so tactical learners are people who sometimes are referred to as, right, like I said, kinesthetic learners. They learn best through their hands. Traditionally in like a classroom, they like to be people that move around, touch things, do physical experiments, reenact things, like kind of making a drama out of it. And so examples for things that they would like to do is like I kind of talked about using 3D models or building models, like constructing things, using like clay or different things like that to kind of explain things. And they also do things like rocking in place kind of or pacing when they're studying, and that kind of just a movement sometimes can help put the knowledge in there, help solidify it, like I keep saying, So I know that's probably long-winded. We've really kind of dug down into like really understanding all these different types now. But I think even just talking about them, even for me, probably helps me understand them better. And then now I can probably place myself that much more, especially after that test I took earlier.
Well, and the last one you mentioned is the one I want to dive a little bit deeper on for, like athletes in general, because I talk about this one a lot, the kinesthetic awareness.
Okay.
A lot of I definitely think as far as natural intelligence goes, I think that's my strongest natural intelligence is just awareness of my body. Like when I first got into like doing CrossFit, like someone showed me a muscle up and then I did a muscle up. There was no like progressions or like learning how to do it or drills or whatever. I was just like, okay, all right, okay, let me do that.
You're like that kid that like hears the song play and then walks straight up to the piano and just like, here it is, and lays it out perfectly.
No, I'm not like some savant or whatever. I think that's like I said, natural for me, but I also don't think that it's like it can't be learned or taught. And one thing I've studied a little bit more, and one thing that I did wanted to dive into a little bit more was the difference between proprioception and kinesthetic awareness. Because proprioception is something that comes up a lot when I'm talking with other coaches or people who are just training athletes and stuff, and so they often get used very interchangeably. Kinesthetic awareness and proprioception, people use them almost as if they're synonyms, but that's not actually how it works. So the best example I can give is so kinesthetic awareness is kind of your reaction to a specific situation. Say someone throws you a ball, okay, and like a basketball, and you're very coordinated and you're good at basketball, so you're very kinesthetically aware on like how your hands are going to move. Not only like how your hands are going to move to catch it, but you're going to move them in such a way that your next movement after your hands moving after you catch the ball, because maybe you're going to shoot immediately or maybe you're going to pass it immediately or whatever, your hands are moving in the direction they need to be able to get that done. Someone who might be less coordinated or with less kinesthetic awareness might catch the ball in a bad spot and then like take it slowly somewhere else. They're not as kinesthetically aware, say in basketball, as you would be. But proprioception in that same example would be your core muscles stabilizing, your knees being slightly bent, your elbows being bent a certain way, the different balance between your feet. These are all the things that you're not thinking about that are much, much harder to train. So your kinesthetic awareness you're getting in basketball can just come from repetition and playing and all this other stuff. Proprioception is has more to do with the subconscious things that your body does when you're doing an activity. So think of it as subconscious is proprioception, and kinesthetic is conscious effort. Is the kind of the differences there. Cool. But the only reason I bring them up is because it's been proven that you can train proprioception, and kinesthetic awareness is obvious that you can train that, because if you're getting better as an athlete, whatever your sport, whether it's just lifting a barbell or basketball, anything, you obviously can get better at that, right? So, but proprioception, what you can actually do is pretty much practicing balance or anything like that. Exercises with your eyes closed. That's why I mentioned that at the beginning. That's why that was a challenge. Exercises with your eyes closed is a huge way to kind of build that up and get better. But your eyes have to be closed for a longer period of time. So if you just like, that's why I said 30 squats. Because if I said, hey, Talon, close your eyes and do one squat, you're going to close your eyes, do one squat. It's going to be the easiest thing on planet Earth.
Right.
But you might find, and maybe 30 might not even be challenging enough. I tried to make it realistic, but if someone's good at squats, hell, do 50, do 100. Keep your eyes closed the whole time and let me know what happens. Like maybe you start to lean towards one side, maybe you fall back, maybe you rock forward, and that's going to be huge. It's not like, it shouldn't be necessarily alarming, but it should just be like, okay, well, I'm not as like, I don't have as much proprioception as I thought that I did, and that's something that you can work on by doing more of that. But other like fun ways to build proprioception. Have you ever heard of an endo board?
I have not.
So it's like, have you ever seen like a skim board that you like take to the beach? Like it's like a wooden skateboard like thing that you just throw on the shore and skim board. So it's basically a skim board, kind of with like a foam roller looking thing that goes in the middle.
Okay.
And you balance like this, like
I've seen something like that at the gym.
Yeah, so they like teeters and totters and stuff like that. But Endo Board is the actual company. I'm sure you could get some other brands out there. And then a little more hippie version would be like a slack line. You know, you could do. I'm sure you heard of a slack line. Just basically a slack, like a you never heard of a slack line?
I have not.
Okay, all right. So a slack line is it's basically a line you could tie between any 2 points. Two trees, a bridge, and it's kind of like a tightrope walk. Okay. But it's like this flat piece of rope that you tighten down, ratchet down to 2 different areas, and you practice walking across it.
You seriously do tightrope walking? Oh my goodness!
I don't do this stuff often, but I've done this stuff in the past, and it's fun. It is enjoyable, and these things that you can do. So these are. I think that things like training your proprioception. If you're not naturally gifted, you should definitely do it, but it's also kind of fun. Like the things I'm talking about, they're fun to do. Like the endo board is just fun. You can make it a challenge between you and a friend. Like a slack line is fun. Like all of those things are fun. And I know I've talked about in the podcast before, but like it's almost like that old man strength. Like the reason, old man strength is a real thing, and a lot of people think it's kind of a joke, but it's a real thing because just the neuromuscular coordination of an older person is better than a younger person, because their mind and their central nervous system knows how to better recruit muscles and use them than a younger human being. And so that's why older people have like that quote unquote old man strength. It's because they just actually know how to use their bodies, call on more muscle fibers, recruit more muscles, and do that. But if you can kind of master training proprioception at an earlier time period, you can be stronger faster as well. So there's a lot of benefits to doing this stuff.
We need to have an old man strength show, just dedicated only to old man strength.
Just the whole show, like every episode?
No. Just one episode. But I love that example you just brought up, and I'm really excited about this challenge this week. I feel like when you're first talking about it, just closing my eyes probably to do 10 squats, I'd probably be the person that falls over. I feel like I have pretty good spatial awareness and all that, but man, this to me sounds like it's absolutely perfect for this sense, because I'm not going to have any understanding of what's around me with my eyes closed. I'm going to have to just base it strictly off how my body feels and how well it's holding itself up and how those little small muscles are working. And so I think this is going to be perfect for that.
It gets pretty crazy pretty fast. I know when I was in AFSOC, they train the human performance program. They have all these tests, right, that they're running operators through now to increase the longevity of of operators, basically. But one of them is this basically a balance test with your eyes closed, with your eyes open, with your head tilted, and all this other stuff. And it's pretty crazy to get people on there, especially people who aren't very athletic. Because people like literally, if I have you like close your eyes and then tilt your head up and to the right, and then lift your opposite leg, you like people fall over.
Yeah,
and it's just kind of crazy. And because they're on like this board, and you can see on the screen how unbalanced they are. It's pretty insane. And to be honest, if you're not training these things, and think about how easy it becomes to not train stuff like this.
Right.
The reason proprioception actually is a big deal is it's not like this. It's not a parlor trick that like is like, oh yeah, that's cool, I can do an endo board or a slack line. It's when you get older and you have this stuff built up, your quality of life is going to be 100 times better than other 70 or 80-year-olds if you make it that far, because you're just going to be able to move better. You're going to live better because you have this proprioception that everyone else is just letting frickin' go, because you can sit at a desk all day and do your job or whatever, and you never have to actually worry about doing this stuff.
Well, because it's uncomfortable, and it's not uncomfortable in a way that people would actually, like, the benefits aren't something that would actually come to people's heads immediately. You know, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this with my eyes closed. Well, when's the next time I'm not going to have my eyes available? So,
right, and it's not losing 10 pounds, right, or gaining 5 pounds of muscle or whatever, so it's like, why do it, you know? And I actually, when I was training, like, I don't know, say 10 years ago, I used to think this stuff was so silly. I'd be like, I'd see like athletes doing this like really crazy stuff. I'm like, yeah, exactly what you just like. When is that ever actually going to happen? And there was this whole other world of training I didn't know about and why people were doing it. But to be honest, I don't feel like some of those guys knew it either. I think they were just trying to do cool stuff and they wanted to look cool. But yeah, that's it. You know, there actually is a lot of benefit to doing.
That's what becoming better is all about. Don't you know, Jared? It's about looking cool.
It's about looking cool in the process. You know what really funny story was in pilot training, they would like, it was a joke obviously, but like if you ever got an emergency situation, they'd be like jokingly, or they'd ask you seriously, like, okay, what are the steps for getting through this or whatever, and then the instructor pilot would be like, no, you have to sound really freaking cool on the radio. That's the only thing that you really have to worry about, because they're going to play these tapes back over and over again, find out what went wrong, so you just need to make sure you sound as cool as possible. I always thought that was funny.
That's funny. The biggest takeaway, I think, for me in all of this, I think you hit the nail on the head just a couple minutes ago, was, what was that P word again that you keep saying?
Proprioception.
Right. See, that sounds like a pretty awesome thing. And to me, number one is because it's like a subconscious or an unconscious, you know, muscle movement decision that we're making to use these types of muscles or to do these types of movements. And so for me, that's what becoming a better human really is all about, is training your subconscious. If you can do that, that's reaching that like that higher level. That's reaching that like Maslow's hierarchy that you like to talk about, self-actualization. Because if you're able to control that, channel that, manipulate that subconscious and how you are actually operating behind the scenes, then you're going to have that much more control over your own life and how much improvement you do make.
And you're going to become a better human.
That's right.
All right, guys, that does it for this week. Just a quick recap from the two announcements at the beginning. One, go to betterhumanology.com. Sign up for the first 3 days of the Better Human Challenge. Guess what? You'll become better. Thing two, go ahead and leave us a positive comment, a 5-star review in iTunes, and you will be entered in the giveaway for that barbell. But other than that, guys, until next week, or dang it, till Thursday.
Peace.
your best. Losers always whine about their best.